My name is Ethan Carver, and what I'm about to describe took place last December, during a week when I was completely alone in my house. My girlfriend, Lena, had gone to spend the holidays with her family, but I stayed behind due to work. I live in a quiet, spread-out neighborhood in a small upstate New York town where most families travel during Christmas. That week, the entire street felt abandoned except for me. At first, I actually appreciated the silence. I imagined spending my evenings catching up on shows, cooking simple meals for myself, and enjoying the warm, peaceful glow of Christmas lights without any interruptions. But the events of that week have stayed lodged in my brain so deeply that I still think about them almost every night when December rolls around. It began on my second night by myself. It was just after 6:30 p.m., already pitch black outside, and it had been lightly snowing since morning, just enough to coat the yard, driveway, and rooftops with a smooth white sheet. I was in the kitchen boiling pasta and cooking chicken, and even though I'd never call myself a great cook, I figured I could survive a week without Lena's help. I turned on the TV in the living room to fill the quiet because the house felt strangely empty without another person in it. I sat down at the dining table with my food and had only taken a few bites when I heard something odd, a noise so out of place that it took me a few seconds to identify it was singing. At first, I assumed the TV was doing something weird, but when I muted it, the sound became clearer. Someone outside was singing Jingle Bells. My first thought was maybe kids were out playing, but the voice wasn't childish at all. It was definitely an adult man's voice, slow, off-key, and unsettlingly monotone. I walked toward the front door because that was where the sound seemed to be coming from. The closer I got, the louder it grew. By the time I reached the door, whoever it was sounded like they were right on my front porch. My stomach tightened with a strange sense of dread, but I still assumed it was maybe some sort of lone caroler. I opened the door. Standing directly under the glow of my porch light was a man, maybe mid-30s. He wore no hat despite the cold, and his thin, dirty-looking coat didn't match the weather at all. The most disturbing part, though, was how he was staring straight down at my welcome mat while singing, completely ignoring me, like I wasn't even there. I forced a polite smile and stood there awkwardly. I'd never had Christmas carolers, and definitely not a single adult man doing it alone. He didn't seem dangerous, just disconnected. When he finished the song, I expected him to leave or at least say something, but instead he took a deep breath and restarted Jingle Bells from the beginning. This time, however, he lifted his head and made direct, unwavering eye contact with me as he sang them. My forced smile faded immediately. Something felt terribly wrong that he just kept looping the song over and over. I looked at my phone, and almost 4 minutes had passed with him singing non-stop. Finally, I told him, "Thank you," and slowly closed the door, assuming that would make him go away, but the singing didn't stop. Even with the door shut, his voice continued, still slow, still off-key, still right outside my home. I returned to the dining table and tried to finish eating, but it was impossible to focus with that eerie singing just feet away. After about 10 agonizing minutes, his voice suddenly stopped. The abrupt silence made my heart jump. I went to the window beside the door and peeked outside, expecting him to be gone. He wasn't. He was now standing at the end of my driveway, motionless, facing the house. Just staring. The singing was creepy, but that silent stare was worse. I cracked open the front door and told him firmly that he needed to leave, that this was private property. He didn't move. Didn't blink. Didn't acknowledge me. I warned him I would call the police, then shut the door and locked it. I watched him from the window for another minute. He didn't budge an inch. Not wanting to escalate things if he was mentally unstable, I decided to just retreat upstairs, lock my bedroom door, and try to calm down. I looked out my bedroom window before changing into pajamas, and he was gone. I breathed a sigh of relief. 20 minutes later, while reading in bed, I heard something that made my entire body tense, the same voice singing Jingle Bells, but now it was coming from the backyard. I ran to the window. The man was standing in my backyard, directly under my bedroom window, staring up at me while he sang. I threw open the window and yelled that I was calling the police. He stopped singing instantly. For 3 seconds, he stood frozen, then he sprinted, full speed, toward my back door. The moment he disappeared from view, he started screaming, not like a normal person, but like something wild and unhinged. His scream was deep, guttural, almost animalistic, and it vibrated through the whole house. Then came the banging that he slammed, kicked, and threw his entire weight against the back door. The impacts shook the frames so violently that I could feel them upstairs. That I grabbed my phone and dialed 911, my hands shaking while holding a baseball bat in my other hand. I hid in my bedroom closet at the operator's instruction and listened to his inhuman screams and the pounding on the door, and then, everything stopped, silence that I didn't know if he had broken in or left. I stayed inside the closet until the police arrived. When they surveyed the property, the back door was still locked. They found footprints showing exactly where he had stood under my window and where he had run to the back door. The prints led off into the woods behind my house before disappearing. The officers didn't seem concerned, which frustrated me, but I was too shaken to argue. That night, the house felt impossibly empty and cold. I locked everything, twice. The peaceful alone time was over. I ended up spending Christmas Eve and Christmas at my parents' house. As for that man, he never returned, or at least, I hope he didn't. I want to share something that happened to me about 10 years ago, during a Christmas season I'll never forget. Back then my name was Jordan Hale, and I had just turned 6 years old in November. Even though I was young, certain memories from that time burned themselves into my brain, and no matter how many years pass, they never fade. My birthday had actually fallen on the same day as that famous one-handed catch by Odell Beckham Jr. My whole family were die-hard Cowboys fans, but for some reason, I was obsessed with the Giants. I didn't know much about football, but even I understood how unbelievable that moment was. Everyone talked about it throughout the entire night, overshadowing my birthday celebration in a way that only a sports-loving household could do. One of my birthday gifts that year was a ticket to see the Mavericks vs. Wizards game on December 30th. Even though I was a Cavaliers fan at heart, living in a suburb not far from Dallas meant that the Mavericks had become a secondary favorite team of mine. It was going to be my very first NBA game, and I was thrilled. Christmas came a few days later, and it was just as exciting. I got a brand new Odell Beckham Jr. jersey, plus a Mavs sweatshirt and shirt, slowly building my little sports fan identity. But the biggest surprise was that I got tickets to another Mavericks game, this one on December 27th against the Thunder. 2 NBA games in the same week. I felt like the luckiest kid alive. The first game came quickly, and the Mavericks won in a close match, something around 112 to 105. The experience of being inside a real NBA arena was unbelievable, loud, bright, full of energy. On the drive home, I stared out the car window replaying every moment. 2 days later, it was already time for game number 2. This time, our seats weren't as close, maybe row 20 in a corner area, but I didn't care. I was still just as excited to be there. Everything seemed normal, purely fun. The Mavericks were crushing the Thunder by halftime, something like a 20 or 30-point lead. And, being a restless kid, I kept telling my parents I wanted to explore, get snacks, see the hallways, go to the bathroom alone, all the typical things a kid wants to do in a big new place. But I was only 6, so they didn't let me wander. During halftime, we all walked to get food. The line was long, around 20 minutes. My dad left to grab something from another food spot nearby while my older brother and I waited at the register for our order. At one point, I walked maybe 30 feet away to throw out a wrapper from some candy they had bought me before the game. That's when a tall white man approached me. He looked perfectly normal, maybe in his mid-40s. He leaned down a bit and asked gently, "Hey buddy, are you lost?" I didn't speak, just shook my head. He studied me a moment, then said he didn't see my parents anywhere and told me, very calmly, "Let's go look for them." Then he grabbed my hand. Because I was only 6, I didn't second guess it. I just let him lead me. He told me he was taking me upstairs toward the upper levels where they could make an announcement on the intercom. I had no reason to doubt him. I followed obediently. We went higher and higher, closer to the nosebleeds where fewer and fewer people were walking around. Eventually, we stood alone in a quiet area. The man seemed to be waiting for something. He kept checking around as if watching for people. Then he pushed me gently toward a side door, an emergency stairwell or maybe an elevator area, I'm not sure. All I remember is that no one else was around, and in that moment, something clicked. the stranger danger lessons, the sudden sick feeling in my stomach, the realization that he didn't have any arena badge or uniform. Just a normal guy who had taken a child's hand and led him away from his family. When he looked down at his phone for a moment, I bolted that I sprinted back toward the stands as fast as my small legs could carry me. When I turned once to check behind me, I saw him standing still, wearing a small, unsettling grin. Not chasing me, just staring. That I found my brother again, who immediately noticed how shaken I was, but he didn't tell our parents I'd gone missing. He didn't want to get in trouble. The game ended with a Mavericks win, but I barely noticed. I was quiet the entire way out of the arena. My parents asked if I was tired because I wasn't my usual energetic self. On the drive home, I almost fell asleep, but then a loud honk sounded behind us. I turned and felt my stomach drop. It was him. The same man was in a truck behind us, and there were shadows moving inside the truck with him, maybe 2 or 3 others. I couldn't see their faces, only their silhouettes. At one point, the truck pulled up beside us and my parents yelled out the window, demanding to know what they were doing, but the men just stared. I wanted to say something. I wanted to scream what had happened. But I couldn't. I felt frozen. When we got home, I went straight to bed and somehow fell asleep quickly from exhaustion. But in the middle of the night, I woke up with chills running through me. There was a flashing light coming through my bedroom window. I assumed it was just the reflection of a car passing by, but when I sat up and looked, he was standing outside, the same man. In the dark. In my yard, holding a flashlight pointed straight into my bedroom window. I screamed and ran to my parents' room, telling them someone was at my window. They rushed outside, but after searching for 20 minutes, they found nothing. They thought I imagined it. They told me it must have been a car's headlights reflecting, but I knew what I saw. A few days later, on New Year's Eve, something even stranger happened. We were all getting ready to watch the ball drop. With about 5 minutes left until midnight, our doorbell rang. My parents answered. I didn't pay attention until I heard his voice. I instantly froze. I screamed to my parents that it was the same man, but they dismissed me completely. They said the man was just passing out lost dog flyers. I told them the real story, how he led me to the top of the arena, but they still didn't believe it. They thought I was exaggerating or confusing things. That night eventually ended. And honestly, I let myself forget the whole thing for a while, until 1 year later, New Year's Eve again, I woke up to a knocking sound, not on the door, but on my bedroom window. A light tap. I got out of bed and looked, expecting maybe branches moving or something harmless, but taped to the glass was a piece of paper. A note. It read, "This new year, you'll meet me again." My parents filed a police report, but nothing ever came back from it. Now I'm 16, and every New Year's Eve, I find myself terrified without knowing if he still remembers me or where he is. I haven't attended another NBA game since that night. I told my parents basketball isn't my thing anymore, but the truth is, I'm scared, because he knew where I lived then, and he might still know now.